What happens when the most feared galactic empire gives humanity 24 hours to surrender? And humanity responds with memes. When the Corvathian hegemony descended from the stars with their ultimatum, they expected terror. They expected panic. They expected immediate submission from yet another primitive world. What they got instead was Earth's internet collectively deciding that alien invasion was mid, and their flagship looked sus. While governments scrambled and military forces mobilized, humanity did what it does best. It turned a cosmic threat into content. Within hours, #AlienDeadline was trending, TikTok dances were being performed in front of hovering dreadnoughts, and someone had already created a dating profile for the Corvathian emperor. But beneath the seemingly chaotic response lay something the galaxy had never encountered before, a species that weaponized its own unpredictability, turned mockery into morale, and discovered that sometimes the best defense against overwhelming force is absolute, unhinged audacity. The Corvathians thought they were conquering another world. They had no idea they were about to become Earth's newest entertainment trend, and learn why humanity's greatest strength isn't their technology or their weapons, but their complete inability to take anything seriously when they probably should. This is the story of 24 hours that changed galactic history forever, not through heroic last stands or impossible victories, but through the sheer, magnificent chaos of humanity refusing to read the room. The massive ships appeared over Earth's major cities at exactly 12 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time, their dark hulls blotting out the afternoon sun like storm clouds made of metal and malice. Each vessel stretched nearly 20 kilometers from bow to stern, bristling with weapon ports that glowed an ominous crimson. The Corvathian hegemony had arrived, and their intentions were unmistakably hostile. Ambassador Zektar stood on the bridge of the flagship Worldrender, his forearms crossed in a gesture of supreme authority. His chitinous exoskeleton gleamed under the command deck's harsh lighting, and his multifaceted eyes surveyed the blue-green world below with the cold calculation of a predator sizing up prey. In his 3 centuries of service to the hegemony, he had overseen the submission of 47 worlds. Earth would be his 48th. "Begin the transmission," he commanded, his voice carrying the harmonics that marked his species as natural-born conquerors. Let these primitives understand their situation. The communication array hummed to life, broadcasting on all frequencies across the electromagnetic spectrum. Television networks, radio stations, internet servers, and mobile devices across the planet suddenly displayed the same image, Zektar's imposing figure against the backdrop of space, with Earth hanging vulnerably in the distance. Inhabitants of the third planet, Zektar's voice boomed across every speaker on Earth, automatically translated into thousands of languages by the hegemony's advanced linguistics algorithms. "I am Ambassador Zektar of the Corvathian hegemony. Your world has been selected for integration into our glorious empire. In living rooms, offices, and public spaces across the globe, humans paused their daily activities to stare at their screens. Some gasped, others screamed, but a surprising number simply pulled out their phones and started recording. You have 24 of your local time units to make your choice," Zektar continued, his tone brooking no argument. "Submit unconditionally to hegemony rule, or face the consequences of resistance. Your military forces are insignificant. Your technology is primitive. Your only option is complete surrender." The ambassador paused, allowing the weight of his words to sink in. This was typically the moment when planetary leaders began frantically attempting to establish communication, offering tribute or begging for mercy. Zektar had seen it countless times before. "We will return for your answer in exactly 1 rotation of your planet. Choose wisely." The transmission ended, leaving Earth in stunned silence for approximately 30 seconds. Then, the internet exploded. @MemeLord_Supreme was the first to respond, posting a screenshot of Zektar with the caption POV, "Your Uber driver is really mad about the 1-star rating." The post gained 10,000 likes in the first minute. Dr. Sarah Chun, a xenolinguist at MIT, was in her office grading papers when the broadcast interrupted her afternoon. Unlike most of the planet, she didn't immediately reach for her phone. Instead, she grabbed her notebook and began frantically scribbling observations about the alien's speech patterns, facial expressions, and body language. "This is incredible," she muttered to herself, replaying the broadcast on her computer. "First contact, and they're speaking in ultimatums." The linguistic structure suggests a hierarchical society with rigid command protocols. Her excitement about the scientific implications was interrupted by a notification on her phone. Her younger brother Marcus had sent her a TikTok video titled, "Rating My Alien Invasion Experience. February 10th, would not recommend." The video showed Marcus standing in his dorm room at UCLA, pointing at the alien broadcast playing on his laptop. "So aliens finally showed up, and they're basically cosmic Karens," Marcus was saying to his camera. "Like, imagine traveling across the galaxy just to give humanity a bad Yelp review." "Sir, this is a Wendy's." Sarah couldn't help but laugh despite the gravity of the situation. Leave it to her generation to turn an existential threat into content. Meanwhile, at the Pentagon, the mood was significantly less jovial. General Patricia Hawkins stared at the tactical display showing the positions of the alien vessels. Each ship was positioned over a major population center: New York, London, Tokyo, Beijing, Moscow, Mumbai, Sao Paulo, and Lagos. The pattern was clearly strategic, designed for maximum psychological impact. "What's our assessment?" she asked Colonel Rodriguez, her chief of staff. "They're not wrong about our technological disparity," Rodriguez admitted reluctantly. "Based on the energy signatures we're detecting, each of those ships could level a city in minutes. We've scrambled all available fighter squadrons, but against technology like that, we need options," Hawkins interrupted. "Contact the president, and get me a line to every other military leader on the planet. If we're going down together." Back in cyberspace, humanity was doing what it did best, turning trauma into comedy. #AlienDeadline was trending worldwide within 2 hours, accompanied by an endless stream of memes, jokes, and increasingly creative responses to the ultimatum. At Galactic Bay posted, "Aliens really said surrender or we'll make you surrender. Like that's not the same thing with extra steps." At Dad Jokes from Space contributed, "Why did the aliens give us 24 hours? Because even they know humans work better under a deadline." At Conspiracy Theory Mom surprisingly pivoted from her usual content to post, "I've been preparing for government surveillance for years, but apparently I should have been worried about alien surveillance. My bad, guys." The responses weren't limited to text. Within hours, creative humans had produced alien invasion bingo cards, countdown timers with increasingly absurd sound effects, and a dating app specifically for finding love during the apocalypse. Perhaps most surprisingly, at Real Earth Government, the verified account of the United Nations, posted their own response. "We appreciate the Corvathian hegemony's interest in Earth. Unfortunately, we're currently experiencing high call volume due to various ongoing apocalypses. Your submission demand is important to us, so please hold while we connect you with the next available civilization." Dr. Chen watched the digital pandemonium unfold with fascination. As a scholar of human communication, she recognized something profound happening beneath the apparent chaos. Humanity wasn't panicking, they were processing. The jokes and memes weren't signs of a civilization in denial. They were symptoms of a species that had evolved to find humor in hopeless situations as a survival mechanism. She began typing her own response, not as a meme, but as an academic observation. What we're witnessing isn't humanity's inability to take threats seriously. It's our species' most powerful adaptation, the ability to maintain psychological resilience through shared cultural expression, even in the face of extinction-level events. Her post was screenshot and shared thousands of times, usually with captions like, "Professor explains why we're all coping with jokes," and, "Honestly, valid." On the Corvathian flagship, Zektar watched the planet's communications networks with growing confusion. His intelligence officers had spent months studying human civilization, analyzing their conflicts, their power structures, their typical responses to threats. Every model had predicted panic, desperate attempts at negotiation, or frantic military mobilization. Instead, the planet seemed to be laughing at them. "Ambassador," his communications officer announced, "we're detecting massive increases in data traffic across their global network." It appears to be some form of coordinated response. Show me, Zektar commanded. The main display filled with a sampling of Earth's internet activity. Zektar's multifaceted eyes struggled to process what he was seeing. Images of his own face had been edited and manipulated in hundreds of different ways, accompanied by text that made no sense in any linguistic context he understood. "What is the meaning of these symbols?" he asked, pointing at a meme that showed his broadcast image with the text, "When you order planetary conquest from Wish.com. Unknown, sir. Our linguistic algorithms are having difficulty parsing the contextual meaning. It appears to be some form of ritualistic mockery." Zektar felt a cold sensation in his chitinous stomach. In his centuries of conquest, no species had ever responded to the hegemony with ridicule. Fear, yes. Anger, occasionally. Desperate defiance, sometimes. But laughter? This was unprecedented. "Perhaps they don't understand the seriousness of their situation," suggested Subcommander Clickstage. "Many primitive species require additional demonstrations of power to comprehend their helplessness." Zektar considered this. It was possible that these humans were simply too undeveloped to grasp the reality of their predicament. A show of force might bring clarity to the situation. "Deploy a reconnaissance squadron," he ordered. "Have them conduct low-altitude passes over the major population centers. Let these humans see our weapons systems up close. That should adjust their attitude appropriately." As the smaller Korvathian vessels descended toward Earth's atmosphere, humanity's response continued to evolve in ways that defied all alien expectations. Live streams popped up showing people having picnics while watching alien ships overhead. Someone organized a flash mob directly beneath the New York vessel, performing an interpretive dance about cosmic anxiety. A group of teenagers in Tokyo held up signs with alien pickup lines like, "Are you from outer space? Because your ultimatum is out of this world." The cognitive dissonance between threat and response was becoming impossible to ignore, both for the aliens watching from above and for the humans participating below. But rather than breaking down in the face of overwhelming odds, humanity was doing something it had never done before in recorded history. It was crowdsourcing its own apocalypse response in real time. And somehow, inexplicably, it was working. Not as a military strategy or a diplomatic solution, but as a collective psychological defense mechanism that was keeping 8 billion people functional while their world hung in the balance. Dr. Chun finished her third academic post of the day as alien reconnaissance ships screamed overhead. Update. Humanity appears to be engaging in what I can only describe as aggressive optimism through viral content creation. We're not just surviving our existential crisis, we're making it trend. The reply that gained the most traction came from at Apocalypse Bay. Dr. Chin really said, "Humanity is coping through memes like that's not the most human thing ever." 10 out of 10 would evolve this stress response again. As Earth's first night under alien ultimatum began, the planet pulsed with an energy that was part defiance, part performance art, and entirely, unmistakably human. In 23 hours, and counting, the Korvathian hegemony would return for their answer. Humanity was still working on it, but they were definitely going to make it entertaining. Hour 6 of the ultimatum found Earth in a state of organized chaos that would have impressed any sociologist and baffled any military strategist. As the planet rotated through its time zones, different regions took over the responsibility of crafting humanity's response to its potential extinction, creating a continuous wave of creativity that followed the sun around the globe. In Tokyo, the evening crowd had gathered in Shibuya Crossing beneath the hovering alien vessel, which the internet had dubbed Big Chungus due to its imposing size. Rather than evacuating, thousands of people had turned the famous intersection into an impromptu festival. Street vendors sold, "Last Day on Earth" ramen. Teenagers posed for selfies with the alien ship in the background. And an elderly man named Hiroshi had set up a small shrine where people could leave messages for their loved ones. "This is insane," muttered Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka of the Japanese Self-Defense Forces, watching the scene unfold from her command post. She had been ordered to maintain crowd control, but the crowd was controlling itself better than any military operation she had ever witnessed. "Ma'am," her sergeant reported, "the alien reconnaissance ships have been circling for 3 hours, but they haven't made any aggressive moves. It's like they're studying us. Tanaka raised her binoculars and focused on one of the smaller alien craft hovering about 200 meters above the crossing. Through the transparent sections of its hull, she could see tall, insectoid figures pointing instruments at the crowd below. Their body language suggested confusion rather than menace. They're not attacking, she realized. They're trying to figure us out. Meanwhile, on the alien scout ship Swift Strike, pilot Vexkala was filing the most unusual reconnaissance report of his career. Command, the humans appear to be engaging in some form of ritualistic gathering directly beneath our position. They're displaying signs of what their culture might classify as celebration rather than terror. The response from the flagship was immediate and sharp. Repeat that, pilot. Did you say celebration? Affirmative, Command. They've established temporary structures for the distribution of food. There are rhythmic movements that could be ceremonial dancing. And they're generating these bright flashes repeatedly. Vexkala paused, checking his instruments again. Sir, I believe they're taking photographs. Of us. Ambassador Zektar's voice crackled through the communication system with barely contained frustration. Continue monitoring. Document everything. I want a complete behavioral analysis. Back on Earth, the documentary evidence of humanity's response was indeed being meticulously recorded, though not by alien observers. Emma Rodriguez, a journalist for Global News Network, had spent the entire evening interviewing people in the crowd beneath the alien ships. Her findings were as unexpected as they were enlightening. I'm here with Dr. James Peterson, a psychologist from Tokyo University, Emma said into her camera while the alien vessel loomed dramatically in the background. Dr. Peterson, can you explain what we're seeing here tonight? Dr. Peterson adjusted his glasses and smiled. What we're witnessing is a fascinating example of collective stress response. When faced with a threat too large to fight or flee from, humans instinctively turn to social bonding and meaning-making activities. The memes, the gatherings, the humor, it's all serving a crucial psychological function. But surely some people must be terrified? Emma pressed. Oh, absolutely. But terror and defiance aren't mutually exclusive human emotions. In fact, gallows humor has been a survival mechanism for our species for millennia. What's remarkable is that we're doing it on a global scale, in real time, through digital connectivity. As if to prove his point, a group of college students walked past behind them, carrying a banner that read, Earth, 1 star, management was rude, no parking, still better than Yelp reviews for the universe. Halfway around the world, the night shift was taking over. In London, the BBC had transformed their coverage into something between a news broadcast and a variety show. David Attenborough had volunteered to provide nature documentary-style narration of the alien ships, describing their mating displays and territorial markings in his characteristic soothing voice. Here we observe the magnificent Korvathian dreadnought in its natural habitat. Attenborough intoned as cameras panned across the vessel hovering over Westminster. Note the aggressive posturing and the bright red display lights, typical behaviors designed to intimidate rival species. However, the local human population appears remarkably unimpressed by this demonstration, suggesting an evolutionary adaptation to threats that would paralyze most other creatures. The segment had gone viral before it even finished broadcasting, with clips shared across every platform accompanied by crying laughing emojis and comments like, Sir David could make the apocalypse sound peaceful. But while the public face of humanity's response remained defiantly comedic, serious work was happening behind the scenes. In a secure bunker beneath Geneva, representatives from every major nation had gathered for emergency sessions of the United Nations Security Council. The mood here was notably less jovial. The question before us, announced Secretary General Maria Santos, is not whether we can defeat this alien force militarily. Our intelligence agencies are unanimous. We cannot. The question is whether there exists any form of response that might preserve human civilization. General Morrison of the U.S. Joint Chiefs leaned forward. Ma'am, we've run every simulation. Even if we coordinated every nuclear weapon on Earth, the energy shields around their ships would absorb the impact. We're talking about technology that's centuries ahead of ours. Then, perhaps, suggested Ambassador Chen from China. we should consider the possibility that our response doesn't need to be military at all. The room fell silent. Defense Minister Kovac from Russia raised an eyebrow. Are you suggesting we actually surrender? I'm suggesting we think strategically about what these aliens want, Chen replied. They demanded submission, yes, but they also gave us 24 hours. Why? If they could simply destroy us, why the delay? Dr. Elizabeth Reyes, the UN's chief anthropologist, spoke up from her position at the end of the table. Ambassador Chen raises a crucial point. In every historical example of conquest, the conqueror benefits from having willing subjects rather than sullen slaves. The Korvathians might be powerful enough to destroy us, but ruling a planet of 8 billion hostile humans would be challenging. Secretary General Santos nodded thoughtfully. Dr. Reyes, what's your assessment of our current global response? Are we handling this correctly? Dr. Reyes pulled up a tablet displaying real-time social media analytics. From an anthropological perspective, what we're seeing is unprecedented but not unwise. Humans have always used humor and community bonding to maintain morale in hopeless situations. But this is the first time we've been able to coordinate that response globally and instantly. She swiped through several screens of data. The memes aren't just jokes, they're a form of cultural resilience. Every time someone shares a humorous response to the alien ultimatum, they're reinforcing the message that humanity won't be easily broken. It's psychological warfare, but aimed at ourselves rather than the enemy. And is it working? Asked General Morrison. Look at the data, Dr. Reyes replied, turning her tablet around so the room could see. Global suicide rates are actually down compared to last week. Emergency room visits for panic attacks have decreased. People are going to work, albeit while live streaming their thoughts about the alien invasion. We're maintaining social cohesion in the face of an extinction-level threat. General Morrison frowned. But we still don't have a plan for actually dealing with the aliens. Maybe that's the point, Dr. Reyes suggested. Maybe our response is the plan. Back on the Korvathian flagship, Ambassador Zektar was receiving updates from reconnaissance teams across the planet, and each report was more puzzling than the last. In New York, humans had organized something called a rave directly beneath the alien vessel, complete with music that could be detected from orbit. In Sao Paulo, people were playing football in the streets while alien scouts circled overhead. In Mumbai, vendors had begun selling T-shirts featuring poorly drawn alien caricatures with slogans in local languages that roughly translated to "My planet was invaded," and "All I got was this lousy T-shirt." Sir, reported intelligence officer Kexmore, we've detected what appears to be coordinated resistance activity. Zektar's attention sharpened. Military coordination? Weapons buildup? No, sir. They appear to be coordinating jokes and food distribution and something they call content creation. Our behavioral analysis algorithms are struggling to categorize the activity. Zektar stared at the data displays showing Earth's digital communications traffic. The volume of information being shared was staggering, but none of it appeared to be tactical or military in nature. Instead, humans seemed to be engaging in an unprecedented global conversation about their impending doom, and they were making each other laugh while doing it. What's the current assessment from the Planetary Psychology Division? Zektar asked. Kexmore consulted his data pad. The psychologists are divided, sir. Half of them believe the humans are experiencing a collective psychological breakdown. The other half think they might be the most psychologically resilient species we've ever encountered. And what do you think, officer? Kexmore hesitated. Sir, in my opinion, they're doing something we've never seen before. They're facing extinction with style. It's almost like they're turning their last day into an art form. Zektar turned back to the observation deck, where Earth rotated slowly beneath them. City lights twinkled like stars across the planet's surface, but rather than dimming in fear, they seemed brighter than ever. Humans were staying awake, staying active, staying connected to each other across vast distances through their primitive but effective communication networks. Sir, Kexmore ventured. What are your orders for the next phase? Zektar was quiet for a long moment. In his centuries of conquest, he had developed an intuitive sense for when a planet was truly ready to submit. There were signs, communications blackouts as governments fell into chaos, population movements as people fled major cities, desperate attempts at negotiation or sabotage. Earth was showing none of those signs. Instead, it was showing something he had no framework for understanding: a planet-wide party in the face of annihilation. Continue monitoring, he finally ordered, and prepare a full behavioral analysis for transmission to Hegemony Command. I suspect they're going to want to review this situation personally. As Earth's night cycle continued its march around the globe, humanity's response continued to evolve and spread. In Lagos, musicians had composed and recorded an entire album titled Deadline Music for the End Times. In Cairo, mathematicians had calculated the exact odds of human survival and turned their findings into a surprisingly catchy song. In Sydney, surfers were riding waves while alien ships cast shadows on the water, claiming the experience was totally worth the possible vaporization. Dr. Sarah Chun, meanwhile, had spent the evening analyzing the linguistic patterns in humanity's collective response. What she found fascinated her from a scientific perspective and gave her hope from a human one. The memes aren't random, she explained to her brother Marcus during a video call. They're following identifiable patterns that reinforce social cohesion and group identity. Every joke that gets shared is basically a small act of rebellion that reminds people they're part of a larger community that refuses to be intimidated. Marcus, who had gained 3 million followers since his first alien invasion video, nodded sagely. So you're saying our stupid jokes are actually smart psychology? I'm saying our stupid jokes might be the smartest thing humanity has ever done, Sarah replied. We're not just facing death with dignity, we're facing death with defiance. And somehow, we're doing it together. Outside both their windows, alien ships continued their silent vigil over human civilization. But inside those ships, alien observers were beginning to realize that they might have underestimated their quarry in ways that their conquest protocols had never prepared them for. The night was still young, and humanity was just getting started. Hour 14 marked a turning point that no one, human or alien, could have predicted. What started as spontaneous digital rebellion had evolved overnight into the largest coordinated cultural event in human history. As dawn broke across different continents, humanity woke up to discover that their species had accidentally become the galaxy's most unexpected viral sensation. The transformation began in New Zealand, where the sunrise revealed something extraordinary beneath the Corvathian vessel hovering over Auckland. During the night, someone had organized the creation of what could only be described as the world's largest crop circle, except instead of appearing in a wheat field, it had been painted on the city's streets using washable paint and coordinated through a combination of Google Maps and sheer bloody-minded determination. The massive design, visible only from the alien ship's altitude, depicted a cartoonish alien figure with the words, "Rate your Earth experience," surrounded by smaller images that had become humanity's unofficial symbols of defiance: crying laughing emojis, shrug emoticons, and what appeared to be a very detailed drawing of pizza. Captain Thexlon of the reconnaissance vessel Knight's Edge stared down at the street art through his observation portal, his mandibles clicking in what his species used to express profound confusion. "Engineering," he called to his crew. "Are you detecting any strategic purpose to this marking?" "Negative, Captain," came the reply. "It appears to be purely decorative." Though the precision required to coordinate such a large-scale image suggests remarkable organizational capability. What Captain Thexlon didn't know was that the Auckland crop circle was just the beginning. As the Earth continued its rotation and dawn moved westward, similar displays appeared in cities around the globe. Perth unveiled a massive mural declaring, "Earth, still here, still sassy." Manila revealed an intricate mandala pattern that somehow incorporated alien ship silhouettes into traditional Filipino design motifs. Mumbai's contribution was a Bollywood-style dance number performed by thousands of people in perfect synchronization, filmed by drones, and broadcast live to every social media platform simultaneously. The phenomenon had moved beyond simple memes into something approaching performance art on a planetary scale. Dr. Amara Okafor, a cultural anthropologist at the University of Ghana, had been awake all night documenting what she was calling the greatest expression of human collective creativity in recorded history. Her live stream, initially followed by a few hundred academic colleagues, now had over 10 million viewers as she provided real-time analysis of humanity's cultural response to extinction. What we're seeing transcends anything in our historical records, she explained to her global audience, standing on her apartment balcony with the alien vessel visible in the background. Previous civilizations facing conquest had limited communication methods. They couldn't coordinate responses across vast distances or share cultural expressions in real time. Humanity is doing both simultaneously, and the result is unprecedented. Her feed was interrupted by a notification that made her pause mid-sentence. "Wait," she said, checking her phone. "According to my research assistant, the hashtag #HumanityFinalAct has now been used over 1 billion times in the past 18 hours. 1 billion. That means roughly 1 in 8 humans has actively participated in this collective response." The comment section of her stream exploded with reactions from around the world. People were sharing stories of their local contributions to what was being called the Global Goodbye Project. In Sao Paulo, favela communities had painted entire buildings with murals depicting humans and aliens dancing together. In Stockholm, someone had hacked the city's digital billboards to display a countdown timer with the message, "Hours left to impress our new overlords. Make them count." But perhaps the most significant development was happening in boardrooms and government buildings around the world, where the people responsible for making actual decisions about humanity's fate were beginning to realize that their citizens had already chosen their response. In the Oval Office, President Martinez sat across from her chief of staff, staring at intelligence reports that painted a picture unlike anything in military history. "Ma'am," Secretary of Defense Williams explained, "our psychological warfare experts have analyzed the global response, and their conclusion is unusual. The enemy appears to be experiencing what can only be described as cultural shock." President Martinez raised an eyebrow. "Explain." "The Corvathian reconnaissance teams have been sending increasingly frequent reports back to their command ship. Our signals intelligence suggests they're struggling to categorize our behavior using their existing tactical frameworks. They came here expecting to conquer a primitive civilization, and instead they've encountered a civilization that's throwing them a goodbye party," the president finished dryly. "Essentially, yes. And, ma'am, there's something else. Our communications monitoring has detected increased traffic between the Corvathian flagship and what appears to be their home command. They're asking for guidance on how to proceed with a species that responds to extinction threats by creating art." Meanwhile, on the Corvathian flagship, Ambassador Zektar was indeed requesting guidance from higher authorities, though he was finding it difficult to explain exactly what guidance he needed. "Hegemony Command." He spoke into the quantum communication array. "I am submitting a formal request for strategic consultation regarding Earth conquest protocols." The response came back immediately, transmitted across light years of space in the resonant harmonics of Supreme Chancellor Korthvac. "Ambassador Zektar, your preliminary reports have been puzzling. Explain the nature of your request." Zektar gestured to his intelligence officer, who activated the main display. "Chancellor, I am transmitting visual documentation of the human response to our ultimatum. I believe the evidence will clarify our situation better than my words can." For several minutes, quantum communications carried a stream of data showing Earth's activities over the past 14 hours. The silence that followed was the longest Zektar had ever experienced from Hegemony Command. "Ambassador," Chancellor Korthvac finally responded, "our Strategic Analysis Division has reviewed your documentation. Their preliminary assessment is that these humans are either suffering from a collective psychotic break, or they represent something outside our conquest paradigms." "Which do you believe, Chancellor?" Another pause. "Ambassador, in my 4 centuries of overseeing galactic expansion, I have never encountered a species that responds to overwhelming force with entertainment. Our xenopsychology department is requesting additional time to study your data." "And our timeline, Chancellor?" "The ultimatum expires in 10 hours. Extend the deadline, Ambassador. 12 additional hours. We need to understand what we're dealing with." Back on Earth, news of the deadline extension broke through official channels at the same time it was being discussed in alien communications that humanity wasn't supposed to be able to intercept. But Dr. Elena Vasquez, a signals intelligence analyst at the NSA, had been tracking alien communications for the past day using techniques developed for monitoring terrestrial broadcasts. "Sir," she reported to her supervisor, "the aliens are asking their superiors for advice. Their command structure is showing signs of decision-making uncertainty." The implications rippled through intelligence agencies worldwide within minutes. Humanity's chaotic response wasn't just maintaining morale, it was actually affecting alien decision-making processes. On social media, news of the extinction was met with characteristic human adaptability. At End Times influencer posted, "Aliens really said, actually, can we get a deadline extension on your deadline? Imagine being so extra that even your invaders need more time to process you." At Alien Watch Party responded, "Plot twist, we're not being invaded, we're being studied. Earth is now the galaxy's longest-running reality show." The extinction announcement had an unexpected effect on human behavior. Rather than treating it as a reprieve, people seemed energized by evidence that their response was working. The Global Goodbye Project evolved into something even more ambitious, a coordinated effort to showcase every aspect of human culture within the extended time frame. Musicians began composing symphonies that incorporated sounds from every corner of Earth. Artists collaborated on massive digital galleries featuring work from every cultural tradition. Writers started crafting a collective story that would serve as humanity's message to the galaxy. Dr. Chun, who had become an unofficial spokesperson for the scientific community's perspective on the crisis, found herself invited to emergency sessions of the United Nations. Her analysis had evolved from academic observation to strategic consultation. "The extinction tells us something important," she explained to the assembled delegates via video conference. "Our response is having an impact on their decision-making process. We're not just facing conquerors anymore. We're dealing with observers who are genuinely uncertain about how to proceed." Secretary General Santos leaned forward. "Dr. Chun, in your professional opinion, what should our strategy be for the extended deadline?" "Continue doing exactly what we're doing," Chun replied without hesitation. "But amplify it. The aliens are struggling to understand us because we're not behaving like any species they've encountered before. We need to lean into that confusion." "You're suggesting we double down on chaos?" "I'm suggesting we double down on humanity. Our unpredictability isn't a bug in our response, it's a feature. They can't develop conquest strategies for a species they can't categorize." As the news of the extinction spread, humanity's response shifted into an even higher gear. Time zones that had been sleeping during the initial response woke up to find themselves with a second chance to contribute to what was becoming the most ambitious cultural project in human history. In Kenya, traditional storytellers began weaving the alien arrival into epic narratives that connected it to ancient tales of visitors from the sky. In Brazil, samba schools started planning parades that would incorporate alien ship silhouettes into their performances. In Iceland, musicians recorded songs using sounds created by alien engines, turning the very presence of their potential conquerors into musical instruments. But perhaps the most significant development came from an unexpected source: children. Elementary schools around the world had initially been closed as a safety precaution, leaving millions of children at home with their families during humanity's potential last day. But children, being children, had approached the situation with their own unique perspective. 8-year-old Kenji Nakamura in Tokyo had started a video project where he interviewed the alien ship hovering over his city, asking it questions like, "Do you have pets?" and "What's your favorite color?" His parents initially posted his videos as cute family content, but they rapidly gained millions of views as people around the world shared the profound simplicity of a child treating cosmic invaders like new neighbors. The trend spread. Children in dozens of countries began creating content directed at the aliens: drawings, songs, dance performances, and earnest questions about alien culture. What started as innocent childhood responses became another layer of humanity's complex cultural expression. On the Corvathian flagship, these children's videos were having an unexpected impact on the crew. Communications officer Kexmore found himself repeatedly watching a video from a 6-year-old girl in Mali who had drawn a picture of humans and aliens holding hands under a rainbow, accompanied by her serious explanation that fighting is silly when you could be friends instead. "Sir," he reported to Ambassador Zektar, "the humans appear to be involving their offspring in their cultural response." The juveniles are expressing different perspectives from the adults. Zektar studied the children's videos with growing fascination. In Korvathian society, juveniles were kept separate from adult affairs, particularly matters of conquest and warfare. The idea that human children would be included in their species' response to an extinction threat was alien to his understanding of civilized behavior. And yet, there was something about the children's unguarded curiosity and optimism that resonated with something deep in his own psychology that he had long since buried under centuries of military conditioning. Intelligence officer, he called to Kexmore, I want a full analysis of human juvenile behavior patterns. Include it in our next report to Hegemony Command. As Earth entered the final hours of its extended deadline, humanity's response had evolved from spontaneous mockery to coordinated cultural expression to something approaching a genuine diplomatic overture wrapped in the most human package possible. Chaotic, creative, irreverent, heartfelt, and absolutely impossible to ignore. The aliens had come to conquer a planet. Instead, they were discovering that they might have found something far more interesting, a species that could turn even its own extinction into art. Hour 28 of what was supposed to be humanity's final day brought in development that no military strategist, xenobiologist, or social media manager could have predicted. The aliens requested a meeting. The request came not through official diplomatic channels or threatening ultimatums, but through humanity's own digital infrastructure. At exactly 3:17 a.m. Eastern Time, every social media platform, news website, and connected device on Earth simultaneously displayed the same message in perfect, colloquial English that sounded nothing like the formal declarations they had heard before. Hey Earth, this is awkward. Can we talk? K. Management. The message appeared for exactly 60 seconds before disappearing, leaving humanity staring at their screens in collective bewilderment. Within minutes, screenshots had been shared millions of times, accompanied by commentary that ranged from delighted disbelief to skeptical analysis. At Digital Detective posted, did the aliens just slide into humanity's DMs? And did they sign at K Management? Are we being invaded or applying for a job? At Linguistics Nerd contributed, the shift from formal conquest language to casual internet speak suggests either a deliberate attempt to mirror human communication patterns or genuine confusion about appropriate protocols. Either way, fascinating. Dr. Sarah Chun, who had become the de facto voice of academic analysis during the crisis, was pulled from her brief attempt at sleep by emergency calls from government officials worldwide. Within an hour, she found herself on a secure video conference with world leaders trying to determine how to respond to what appeared to be the galaxy's most informal diplomatic overture. The linguistic shift is significant, she explained to the assembled leaders. They've abandoned hierarchical command structure language in favor of conversational patterns. Either they're adapting to our communication style, or what, Dr. Chun prompted President Martinez. Or they genuinely don't know how to proceed according to their normal protocols. This could be an unprecedented situation for them too. Secretary General Santos leaned forward. Dr. Chun, you've been studying their communications patterns. In your professional opinion, is this a genuine attempt at dialogue or a tactical maneuver? Chun considered carefully. Based on the linguistic analysis, I believe it's genuine. The casual tone and informal signature suggest they're stepping outside their standard operational framework. But that makes this incredibly dangerous. Dangerous how? Asked Prime Minister Okonkwo of Nigeria. Because if they're improvising their approach to us, we have no framework for predicting what they'll do next. We're in completely uncharted territory for both species. While world leaders debated response strategies, humanity's internet was already crafting its own reply. The unofficial response came from an unexpected source, a collaborative document that had appeared on every major platform simultaneously, apparently created through a coordinated effort by programmers, linguists, and digital artists around the globe. The document, titled Earth's Official-ish Response to K Management, had been crafted in real time by thousands of contributors and somehow managed to maintain a coherent voice despite its crowdsourced nature. Hi K Management, thanks for reaching out. We appreciate you taking the time to connect with us, though we have to say your initial approach could use some work. The whole submit or die opener was a bit intense for a first contact situation. We've spent the last day discussing your proposal as a species, and we have some questions. 1. What exactly does integration into your empire involve? We're going to need specifics on the benefits package. 2. Are there performance reviews? Advancement opportunities? We're a very career-oriented species. 3. What's your policy on creative expression? Because as you've probably noticed, we do a lot of that. 4. Can we keep our internet? Non-negotiable. We're definitely interested in learning more about you and your civilization. Maybe we can set up a proper meeting? We promise to bring snacks. Looking forward to hearing from you, humanity, all 8 billion of us. But we elected some people to do the talking. P.S. Several of our children have drawn pictures of what they think you look like. We'd love to know how close they got. The document had been signed by over 500 million people in the 4 hours since it appeared, and was still growing. On the Korvathian flagship, Ambassador Zektar stared at the human response document with something approaching awe. His communications team had spent hours analyzing its structure, language patterns, and collaborative creation process. Sir, reported Intelligence Officer Kexmore, this document was created by approximately 12,000 primary contributors across all time zones, with input from an estimated 2 million additional participants. They somehow managed to maintain narrative coherence despite having no central authority directing its creation. How is that possible? Zektar asked. Unknown, sir. Our sociologists believe it represents a form of collective intelligence we've never encountered before. They appear to have achieved consensus without hierarchy. Zektar read through the document again. The humans had somehow managed to transform a diplomatic first contact situation into something that felt like a business negotiation crossed with a social invitation. It was simultaneously naive and sophisticated, casual and carefully crafted. They're asking about our civilization, he observed, not begging for mercy or attempting to negotiate surrender terms. They want to know about advancement opportunities. Yes, sir. They appear to be treating potential conquest as a career change. For the first time in his military career, Zektar found himself laughing. It was a sound that startled his crew, as Korvathian military protocol discouraged displays of amusement. But the human response was so entirely unexpected that his usual emotional control simply evaporated. Sir, Kexmore ventured uncertainly. Officer, I believe these humans have just negotiated their way out of a conquest scenario without realizing it, Zektar replied, still processing the implications. Prepare a response, and contact the diplomatic corps. I suspect we're going to need actual diplomats for this situation. The alien response came 6 hours later, and it maintained the casual tone that had been established. Humanity, your response has been educational. We admit that conquest protocols didn't prepare us for a species that treats invasion as a networking opportunity. Regarding your questions, 1. Integration usually involves resource extraction, cultural assimilation, and administrative oversight. However, we're realizing that might not be optimal for your species. 2. Performance reviews are conducted every solar cycle. Advancement is merit-based, though we've never had a species ask about it before. 3. Our empire generally discourages creative expression as inefficient. After reviewing your output over the past day, we're reconsidering this policy. 4. We have no idea what an internet is, but you seem very attached to it. We accept your proposal for a proper meeting. Please designate representatives. We will also bring refreshments, though our cuisine may be incompatible with human biology. We are curious about the images created by your juveniles. This is not standard diplomatic protocol, but standard protocol seems inadequate for your species. Respectfully confused, Ambassador Zektar, we understand you prefer individual identification to institutional titles. The response triggered another global celebration, but this time with a different character. Instead of defiant mockery, humanity's reaction was one of cautious optimism mixed with genuine excitement about the possibility of actual interstellar contact. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the signals intelligence analyst who had been monitoring alien communications, made a discovery that would reshape everyone's understanding of the situation. While analyzing the latest alien transmission, she detected something that made her call her supervisor immediately. Sir, you need to see this, she reported. I've been analyzing the linguistic patterns in the alien communications, and I think I know why they're struggling with protocol. Explain. Their internal communications show signs of hierarchical breakdown. The crew of that flagship is essentially improvising their entire approach because their standard conquest procedures have no framework for dealing with us. But, sir, there's more. I'm detecting what appears to be debate among their leadership about how to proceed. Debate? Yes, sir. The alien command structure appears to be experiencing something analogous to an identity crisis. They came here to conquer a primitive civilization, but they're dealing with something that doesn't fit their definition of either primitive or civilized. This intelligence was shared with world leaders within hours, fundamentally changing the strategic landscape. Humanity wasn't just confusing the aliens. They were causing their command structure to question basic assumptions about conquest and civilization. The meeting was scheduled for the following day at a neutral location, the International Space Station. Both sides agreed that a location technically belonging to neither Earth nor the alien ship would provide appropriate symbolic neutrality. The human delegation was chosen through a process that was uniquely terrestrial, a combination of democratic selection, expert recommendation, and social media poll. The final team included Secretary General Santos, Dr. Chun as linguistic consultant, Dr. Okafor for anthropological perspective, and, in a move that surprised everyone, 12-year-old Aisha Patel from London, who had been voted as youth representative after her video essay about What I'd Asked the Aliens went viral. The alien delegation would consist of Ambassador Zektar, 2 diplomatic specialists, and what they described as a cultural interpretation officer, apparently a newly created position designed specifically for dealing with humanity. As preparation for the meeting began, both sides faced the same challenge: how to conduct diplomacy with a species that operated according to completely different assumptions about civilization, hierarchy, and appropriate behavior. Humanity spent the preparation time doing what they did best, turning it into content. #FirstContactPrep became a trending hashtag as people around the world offered advice, predictions, and increasingly creative suggestions for topics to discuss with their potential galactic neighbors. At Space Diplomacy posted, Meeting Agenda Suggestion 1. Introductions 2. Cultural Exchange 3. Trade Possibilities 4. Can we visit other planets 5. Do aliens have memes? At Philosophical Alien contributed, what if the aliens are just as confused about existence as we are, and they've been conquering planets looking for species that might have some answers? The Korvathians spent their preparation time trying to develop new frameworks for understanding human behavior. Their standard xenopsychology models had proven completely inadequate for predicting human responses, forcing them to essentially start from scratch in their analysis of Earth's dominant species. As the historic meeting approached, both species found themselves in unprecedented territory. The Korvathians had never encountered a species that treated first contact as an opportunity for cultural exchange rather than submission. Humanity had never faced the challenge of conducting diplomacy with beings who possessed the power to destroy their civilization, but seemed genuinely unsure whether they wanted to. The stage was set for what would become known as the most unusual diplomatic encounter in galactic history, a meeting between a species that had survived through conquest and a species that had apparently thrived through controlled chaos. Neither side knew what to expect, but both were beginning to suspect that the outcome might be more interesting than anything either civilization had experienced before. The historic meeting took place in the observation dome of the International Space Station, with Earth rotating slowly beneath them, and the Korvathian flagship maintaining a respectful distance above. The setting was symbolic, a human outpost suspended between worlds, hosting a conversation that would determine the future of both civilizations. Ambassador Zektar materialized in the center of the dome through what appeared to be a sophisticated teleportation system, accompanied by his diplomatic team. The humans had expected this technology, but actually witnessing matter transmission was still breathtaking. Secretary General Santos stepped forward, extending her hand in the traditional human greeting gesture. Ambassador Zektar, welcome to the International Space Station. I'm Maria Santos, Secretary General of the United Nations. Zektar studied the extended hand for a moment before reaching out with one of his 4 arms to clasp it gently. The gesture was awkward, but clearly intentional. Secretary General Santos, thank you for hosting this meeting. I must admit, this is not how we typically conduct planetary negotiations. Dr. Chun observed the interaction with fascination. The alien's body language suggested genuine nervousness, a remarkable emotional display from a species that had initially presented itself with absolute authority. Ambassador, Santos continued, may I introduce our delegation? Dr. Sarah Chun, our linguistic and cultural consultant. Dr. Amara Okafor, anthropologist. And Aisha Patel, representing Earth's younger generation. 12-year-old Aisha stepped forward with the fearless curiosity that had made her famous. Hi, Mr. Zektar. I'm Aisha. I brought you some drawings that kids from around the world made of what they think aliens look like. We wanted to see how close we got. The moment was surreal, a child offering artwork to a representative of an interstellar empire. Zektar accepted the folder of drawings with careful solemnity, his multifaceted eyes scanning through images that ranged from friendly cartoon aliens to elaborate artistic interpretations. These are remarkable, he said, pausing at a drawing from a 7-year-old in Kenya that depicted humans and aliens playing together in a park. Your juveniles approach the unknown with curiosity rather than fear. That's because we told them you might be friends, Aisha replied matter-of-factly. Adults sometimes forget that scary things can turn into good things if you're nice to them. The simplicity of the statement created a moment of profound silence in the dome. Zektar's diplomatic team exchanged glances that conveyed something approaching wonder. Dr. Okafor seized the moment to begin the cultural exchange she had prepared for. Ambassador, we're curious about Korvathian civilization. Your initial presentation emphasized conquest and hierarchy, but your recent communications suggest more complexity. Zektar's posture shifted slightly. Dr. Okafor, you are correct. The hegemony has operated on expansion principles for millennia. We encounter worlds, assess their resources and populations, integrate them into our administrative structure, and move forward. It has been efficient, but, prompted Dr. Chun, detecting the hesitation in his tone. But, we have never encountered a species like humanity. Your response to our ultimatum has forced us to question fundamental assumptions about civilization and conquest. Secretary General Santos leaned forward. What assumptions? That advanced civilizations operate through hierarchical command structures. That rational species respond to superior force with submission. That cultural expression is secondary to administrative efficiency. Zektar paused, gesturing toward the earth below them. Your species has demonstrated that all of these assumptions may be incorrect. The revelation hung in the air as both species processed its implications. The Korvathian hegemony, a civilization that had conquered dozens of worlds, was experiencing something unprecedented, doubt about their own paradigms. Dr. Chun asked the question that had been building throughout the crisis. Ambassador, what did your leadership conclude about humanity after reviewing our response? Zektar's answer surprised everyone, including his own delegation. Chancellor Korthvac has declared humanity a novel civilization type, requiring entirely new diplomatic protocols. You are the first species to be offered membership rather than conquest. Membership? Santos asked. Partnership status within the hegemony, with autonomous governance and cultural preservation guarantees. It is unprecedented, but then, so are you. Aisha raised her hand like she was in school. Mr. Zektar, does that mean we can visit other planets and meet other aliens? Yes, young Aisha. That is exactly what it means. The implications were staggering. Humanity hadn't just survived first contact. They had accidentally negotiated their way into becoming the first autonomous member of an interstellar civilization. Dr. Okafor pressed for details. What would this partnership involve? Cultural and technological exchange. Access to galactic trade networks. Participation in interspecies diplomatic initiatives. And Zektar hesitated before continuing. Your assistance in developing new approaches to civilizational contact. You want us to help you figure out how to meet other species without conquering them? Santos asked, incredulous. Secretary General, your species' response has revealed fundamental flaws in our contact protocols. We have learned more about effective interspecies relations in the past 3 days than in the previous 3 centuries. Yes, we would value your expertise in this area. The irony was overwhelming. Humanity, facing extinction just days before, was being asked to teach galactic conquest experts how to make friends with aliens. The negotiations continued for hours, covering everything from trade agreements to cultural exchange programs to joint exploration initiatives. But the most significant development came when Zektar addressed the elephant in the room: Earth's chaotic response to the initial ultimatum. "There is one matter that requires discussion," he said. "Your species' reaction to our arrival has been extensively documented by our observation teams. The level of creative expression, social coordination, and psychological resilience you demonstrated has attracted attention throughout the galaxy." "What kind of attention?" Dr. Chen asked, though she suspected she already knew. "Other civilizations are requesting contact with humanity. Word of your response has spread through hegemony networks. Several species are curious about a civilization that responds to existential threats by creating art." Santos blinked. "Are you telling us that humanity has become famous across the galaxy for our memes?" "In essence, yes. You have become what our sociologists are calling a cultural curiosity. Multiple civilizations are requesting diplomatic missions to Earth." Aisha giggled. "We're going to be the weird aliens that everyone wants to meet." The accuracy of her observation was both amusing and profound. Humanity had stumbled into galactic prominence not through technological achievement or military prowess, but through their uniquely chaotic approach to crisis management. The formal agreements reached during the meeting were groundbreaking. Humanity would join the hegemony as an autonomous member with full cultural preservation rights, participate in galactic trade and diplomacy, and collaborate on developing new first contact protocols for other species. In return, Earth would maintain its independence while gaining access to technologies and knowledge accumulated over millennia by dozens of civilizations. But the most important outcome wasn't written in any treaty. It was the realization, shared by both species, that first contact didn't have to follow predetermined scripts. Sometimes the most profound discoveries came from abandoning expectations and embracing the unexpected. As the meeting concluded, Zektar made an observation that would become legendary in both human and Korvathian diplomatic records. "Secretary General Santos, in my centuries of service, I have overseen the conquest of 47 worlds. But I believe helping humanity join the galactic community may be the most significant achievement of my career." The return to Earth was marked by celebrations that somehow managed to exceed even the previous day's creative chaos. Humanity had gone from facing extinction to becoming galactic celebrities in less than a week, and they were processing this development in characteristically human fashion by turning it into the biggest party in planetary history. Within hours of the delegation's return, #Welcome to the Galaxy was trending across all platforms, accompanied by a flood of content ranging from excited speculation about alien tourism to detailed plans for Earth's first interstellar cultural festival. At Galactic Citizen posted, "Day one of being famous across the galaxy. I should probably learn to cook something more impressive than microwave pizza for when the alien ambassadors visit." At SpaceAge_anthropologist contributed, "Humanity just became the galaxy's cultural consultants because we're too chaotic to conquer. This is the most human thing that has ever happened." Dr. Chun, reflecting on the week's events, published what would become the definitive academic analysis of humanity's first contact experience. "What we witnessed was not humanity's finest hour in terms of traditional diplomatic or military excellence. Instead, we saw our species' greatest strength, our ability to adapt, create, and maintain psychological resilience in the face of the impossible. We didn't defeat the aliens through superior technology or strategy. We confused them into becoming our friends." 6 months later, Earth had become the galaxy's unofficial cultural capital. The first interstellar embassy had been established in Geneva, staffed by diplomats from 17 different civilizations. Alien tourists were a common sight in major cities, though they were vastly outnumbered by humans eager to interact with them. The Korvathian hegemony had indeed reformed its first contact protocols based on the human model, emphasizing cultural exchange and mutual benefit over conquest. 3 more civilizations had been successfully contacted using these new approaches, with zero military conflicts and unprecedented levels of cooperative engagement. Aisha Patel had become Earth's youngest interstellar ambassador, regularly hosting cultural exchange programs between human children and alien juveniles from across the galaxy. Her drawings now decorated the walls of the Galactic Council chambers. But perhaps the most remarkable development was how normal it all felt. Humans had adapted to their new galactic status with the same chaotic resilience they had shown during the original crisis. Alien visitors were treated like interesting foreign exchange students. Interstellar trade was managed with the same bureaucratic inefficiency that characterized all human international commerce. Even galactic diplomacy had been infected with humanity's casual irreverence. Ambassador Zektar, now Earth's primary liaison to the hegemony, had developed an appreciation for human culture that his colleagues found endearing and slightly concerning. His personal quarters on the orbital embassy station were decorated with children's artwork, human musical recordings, and a collection of what he called friendship memes gifted by his human colleagues. In his final report to Chancellor Korthvac, he wrote, "Humanity has taught us that civilization is not measured by technological advancement or military capability, but by a species' ability to maintain hope, creativity, and community in the face of overwhelming challenges. They have made us better at being civilized." The response from Hegemony Command was immediate and characteristic. "Ambassador Zektar, your report has been classified as a foundational document for future interspecies relations. Please prepare to establish the first Galactic Institute for Cultural Diplomacy. Location, Earth. Director, to be jointly selected by human and hegemony leadership." As Earth's second year as a galactic civilization began, humanity continued to do what it did best: exceed expectations through the simple expedient of being authentically, chaotically, creatively human. The species that had faced extinction with memes had become the galaxy's teachers of how to live with hope. And they were still trending.